health challenges. Would you like me to do that?
Sure, that'd be great.
Or
See, we're not quite at,
you can hear from her. She's not coming.
Looks like Sue's car.
Looks like a Honda.
It's like a Subaru.
Is it a Subaru?
That's a Honda.
Oh, yeah.
I've been pretty well. I just not too busy. Been doing a few projects.
Good.
I worked out at Camp One on about 8 hours last week.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Did some carpentry for them.
It's the 4th of August.
Been helping do some
Yeah.
cranberry harvesting.
Really? Starting to get that standing up.
There's a client that has a bog on Delmore Loop.
She'll take like one and where can I buy fresh cranberries?
I've done some remodeling for them.
But if you
Involved
think about it,
fixing-
you
working
do
on
it.
a farm.
Yeah, once you start thinking about it, it's like riding a bike.
You know, I help out
The
the bogs.
first time, you know what I mean? If you don't
Waiting
think
around
about
to
it,
think
you
about it,
just
then
go.
you're hoping to do the loading. It's just been
Yeah.
kind of,
Do they sell their cranberries locally? Yeah.
they sell them to Ocean Spray.
Okay, we're still doing,
They
gas
do sell
vouchers
them,
for Sunset
they were
Empire.
selling, they
We
were
are.
selling
They'll
them
have to
at
come see Jeff.
markets.
Okay.
places.
Between,
yeah, they need to.
They do, they buy back some of the
A valid
fruit
registration
from Ocean
for their car,
Spray.
and then a piece of.
Ocean Spray dries some of the fruit.
A valid
So they buy back
registration for their car.
cases of a lot of fruit, and they make trail mix and stuff.
Oh,
And they have
yeah.
Sunday markets, you may have seen them.
Yeah, well, what's the name of the firm?
They call them crannies or whatever.
No, but what's the name of the company?
Well, the, company, the, they're just called crannies. The farms, Tammy and Joe Peterson own.
So we were.
Do they sell it under their own name?
Good.
No,
So
they don't,
really good, yeah.
they don't have a farming.
Yes.
There's other names that have farming.
Oh,
They're
okay.
selling berries
Five.
in bags.
25.
I've got the best.
Pretty expensive.
24,
I've got
sorry,
the best
24.
recipe for
She will be
fresh
good.
cranberries,
Yeah,
but,
she's
Oh,
good.
yeah.
but I don't have, I can't get
I
them.
will.
Good, you think she'll remember
I put them in
me?
the
Oh,
freezer.
yeah,
and
I think she will, of course.
I've been
yeah.
making apples. I made cranberry
She may be
applesauce
moving back here.
just
for-
yesterday.
Where is she?
She's in Portland,
Okay.
I
but
put
she's
cranberries in the
regrouping
freezer.
and thinking about going to grad
I
school.
love cranberry sauces.
For what?
Yeah, I do too. I like
I make a,
Fashion,
just a fruit cake with
merchandising
with apples,
or,
cranberries, and rhubarb.
buying,
All local, right out of the
so
garden.
maybe abroad.
Oh, man.
We're looking at
Hey,
the options,
Sue,
we don't know.
I'm glad you made it.
She's kind of
I was
trying
a
to
little
figure
worried
out,
about you there for a minute.
she didn't quite sort out what career she wants while she was at U of O.
No, I
so-
had a 3 o'clock meeting.
Got time.
She'll pick it up. And it's like,
All right.
show her the mic.
The recording, Darren, are you good on your end?
We're good on my end.
Okay.
So my apologies.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Is that all we need to do for that?
Yeah.
Remember, I know. I believe it.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, declaration of potential of conflict of interest. Kyle?
No.
Sue?
None.
Mike?
I don't believe I have any.
I do not have any conflict of interest. And that is that. Okay. Next item is a recognition of our Park and Recreation Employee of the Month. And for October, it is Izzy Chocolate. Izzy previously worked for the district for 7 years, working as a swim instructor and lifeguard. She recently came back to the district full-time. She currently is a head lifeguard and swim instructor. In the short time she has been back, she has done an amazing job with the swim lesson program and has become one of our site supervisors. She also is our instructor for KinderSwim and is working on remodeling that program. She has a great relationship with our patrons, parents, and children, and we are so happy to have Izzy back with us. She is very positive and experienced in her role in aquatics.
And I just second that.
I third it.
And Izzy's not here, but we have her certificate, and
Yeah.
how do we get that to her? You get it to
We'll
her?
get it to her tomorrow with her, she asked for a gift card to TJ Maxx. She wanted to be here tonight, she was all excited, but she's, as Izzy is wont to do, she's filling in for somebody on swim lessons right now over at the pool, so.
Very good. Mike, can I borrow your pen?
Yes, ma'am.
Sign that, thank you. It does.
So Catherine's down in Disneyland, right?
I know she's gone, I didn't know where she was, but yeah, she's not here tonight, I think she's traveling back or coming back soon. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have public comment. I know we have a letter from Marty. Is that first up?
Usually we would offer the public comment opportunity first. I
Okay.
think, Marty, are you offering public comment tonight?
Yes, well, I actually have the letter, I wanted to submit it, but do you have it in
We
your
have it in our packet,
Okay.
yep.
Okay. Well, yes, I just wanted to say that, ordinarily, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, having a front desk that's unattended wouldn't be a concern, but it is today in this crazy day and age. And I know that there's a protocol in place, and there must be some kind of process that Holly has to follow in order to go through a break and blah, blah, blah. And if you recall, a couple of years ago, a wallet was stolen out of a purse of a patron who was actually in the shower, and her purse was hanging right next to her. A woman entered. There was somebody at the front desk, but she was on the phone and did not see this intruder. And a wallet was taken. Unfortunately, that's all that was the harm. Not that that's not a big deal, but it's only a wallet that can be replaced. So anyway, I ask that we take this seriously. I don't know, I feel like it's kind of a lackadaisical attitude about it. I heard back from nobody. Catherine didn't acknowledge my letter. Scarlett did not acknowledge my letter. This is a serious issue, and I really, and this is not the first time that the front desk has been left unattended. The other thing I wanted to say for the record, I'm disappointed, Scarlett, that you did not arrange with Astoria Pool for those of us who are on a yearly paid membership to go there and swim during the 2 weeks. I know you said that passes will be extended for 2 weeks, but my pass is not affected by that. You get paid whether I'm here or not, and I find that unfair that you're getting paid and I'm getting nothing for the 2 weeks that you're getting paid, and I'm not the only senior that has a yearly paid membership. So you're making a lot of money for that 2 weeks and not providing any service. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. Do we have anybody online, Valerie?
We don't have anybody offering public comment. We have Doug, who's part of the presentation for number 7, but I don't think he's offering public comment tonight.
Okay. I think that then closes our public comment period and correspondence period, correct?
Yeah, and this would be the opportunity for you the board to discuss the correspondence that you received from Marty. I think it's in line with her comments tonight, and if you'd like to ask clarifying questions to staff, this is the time in the past when you should have done that, or if you'd like to direct staff to follow up to the correspondence, we could do that as well.
No, I thought we had to wait for board comments, so.
I think for correspondence, since we've closed public comment, this is your opportunity. I think we try not to interrupt the public comment and have a back and forth during that part of the meeting.
No, I think that, the front desk should always be attended, period. So let's, I wasn't there those 2 instances that were mentioned. I mean, if someone has to use the restroom, is there, someone that steps out of the office to cover that or something,
Yeah, so it can vary, and in general, our policy is to have the front desk staff all the time, and it's unfortunate that it wasn't staffed when we had a patron come in, and obviously we don't want our patrons to feel unsafe or to let people in that we don't know who they are or what they're doing there. there's a couple of different ways that we go about staffing the desk when there's a restroom break needed or another break. Darren can probably speak to that, but it's kind of a pitch in, lots of hands pitching in. Lindsay often pitches in and covers the front desk. Ashley Wolf will pitch in and cover the front desk. Darren will pitch in and cover the front desk. If we have an extra guard, they may come and help. We've even had other staff fill in. So I'm not sure exactly what happened in this situation. I asked.
Real quick, it was Holly's morning break, about 9:30ish. This happened about 20 of 10.
Okay.
When I was in the hot tub and I could see people walking around.
Okay.
And Marty, thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Darren and I did have a conversation about this. I think we're going to re-emphasize our best practice to the staff and ask them to contact a full-time manager if they need a break, or if they're scheduled for a break and there's nobody else there. I'll gladly come up. Darren will gladly come over and help. We'll make sure that the front desk is covered. I think if you all come to the desk and you see that it's not attended,
I've actually done that,
please
and
let us know.
I've stood in while somebody was going to the bathroom, and it's like, hi, don't talk to me, but I'll help you.
Yeah.
But that was like 2 minutes. So, anyway, thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll stand in.
Yes.
So, Marty, I think you were here before once and spoke to the board about another security issue, if I recall. So, I think Marty's a pretty credible witness. She raises some fair concerns, not just about access control, but also about security. And I don't have the solution, but I think it's worthwhile to explore how we secure that building, whether it's people or cameras or electronics, whatever it is. I think it's a fair analysis, and thank you for bringing that forward. The other issue that she brought up was the issue of fairness, whether it's fair not to give her the full 2 weeks access for the times when the period is closed. I don't know about that. I think what we should probably do is when they purchase their annual, make sure the expectations are clear. This is not 52 weeks, it's 50 weeks. But if we can't gain access to the Astoria pool, then maybe we give them their 4% discount, move on from there.
Well, access was given 1 year, back in 2019. There was an agreement made and we were able to swim up there.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair solution, but I think at the time that we offer that for sale, we should explain that, there will be a 2-week period when our pool is closed so that they know the conditions under which they're purchasing. And if we're unable to do that, then, give them an ever so slight discount, whatever the 2 weeks represents.
I guess I've always known we're closed for a couple of weeks, and I don't go anyplace else. But I miss the pool when it's not open.
Mm-hmm.
But we have, there are those untoward circumstances where we have an incident where the pool is closed. It's important that we don't run into, just because, there was a floater in the pool, that somebody gets a discount. That's an accident, and the public safety is upheld. So there just needs to be, I think, an understanding. The closure is done, annually for maintenance, and then other incidences during the year happen as an accident. And I think that's understood. I don't want to go in the pool if somebody pooped in it, so there are.
I didn't bring that issue up at all.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is it can be extrapolated. Well, if you're going to tell me that I'm not paying for 2 weeks, well, I'm not paying for, how many times the pool is closed per year. And so I just want to head that off at the pass, that an accident is different than a planned closure, and maybe when we do the expected 2 weeks of the year, and sometimes it's 3,
And one time it was 4.
Well, it depends, I think, based on what needs to be done. So there should possibly, if we're looking at a dialogue with the patrons, that please understand there is a closure of the pool every year, and.
But my question is, how come we just can't make an agreement with Astoria? We've done it before, why can't it be done again?
Well, I think we've heard, Marty, I appreciate it, I think we've heard,
But
but I just want to avoid.
Right, but the question, I know, but the question's not being answered, you're kind of dancing around.
I know, but
That's my
this is
question.
our time, we
Okay,
have to be
so
able to.
then when would that be addressed then? Who can I ask that question? Because that's the question. Okay,
yeah,
but
you
nobody's answering it.
Because that isn't how we operate.
Oh, okay.
So we don't answer, like, none of us can commit individually to you about what it is. We're
Right.
having our internal dialogue, which is
Mhm.
why it's important to have sort of a boundary between audience or citizen participation in this. So we heard the complaint, so I want to assure you that, and I think you heard that we heard the concern, but at this point, the board needs to be able to discuss amongst itself, so.
Mhm.
So my point was just about, creating the expectations on the front end. So
Yeah.
we're clear about what this annual purchase means. And maybe it means Astoria, or maybe it means the closure for 2 months. I'm not sure, but I think it's fair to let the patrons know what they're buying when
So
they.
do we feel like that's done up front now, Skylar, or that a place?
I could
that
say
we
that, I
can
think that's an improvement that we could make. I don't know if the shutdown is brought up in those regular discussions when we're issuing or selling passes.
I'd like to say that shutdown has been done annually,
Mhm.
ever since I've been on the board,
Mhm.
you know, and been aware of the board activities, for, nearly 25 years. And, it's generally understood. And I don't think it's fair for you, Skylar, to take personal attacks that you're not working or providing any service to the district that has any value, because I know that you serve the district 24/7, and you're working for the district, and you're serving the district with that shutdown with maintenance. So that, to me, is more than earning your keep.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I would say, to this point, is that we are still open in other facilities. We moved all of our fitness classes over to the Bob Chisholm. So we're still offering dryland fitness classes during the 2 weeks, and we still have the recreation opportunities that are at the SRC available. So there's drop-in basketball and pickleball. And while, I wish we could offer some aquatic services during that time, the one time that we did offer our patrons an opportunity to either go to Astoria or Nehalem, that was when we were closed for 6 weeks. We replastered the pool in either 2018 or 2019. And that was a really an extended closure, and we wanted to make sure people still had those opportunities. And while we welcomed the challenge of managing that access to other facilities, it provided a significant time challenge for staff to track that, and the engagement with those other places wasn't as seamless as you might expect it to be. And so we've kind of made the internal decision, if we were only going to be closed for 1 or 2 weeks, then we wouldn't offer those passes, complimentary passes, somewhere else. But to your point, I think we could do a better job, or I can make sure that we're doing a good job having those conversations with folks up front about the shutdown. And I don't want to understate how much work we're able to get done. I think you guys all know the heavy load that the maintenance team and those others that are helping with the shutdown projects will have over these next couple weeks. But we really need that time to not have patrons around and be able to get into the heavier cleaning and heavier maintenance things that we can't get to during the year.
Well, I think the other point is, where a road closure might happen in a non-tourist city in the summer, that's a busy season for us. So this is a really good time of year for us to look at a closure for a couple of weeks. And yeah, it inconveniences somebody, but it has to be done. And I'm grateful that we have such a great pool.
What if our reciprocity agreement was permanent?
With Astoria?
Yeah.
Or
What if Astoria said, hey, if you're an annual member here, you can use Seaside's pool and vice versa?
I think that's something that we could explore. Yeah, I can because
Year-round reciprocity, or just during the shutdown period?
No, just permanent reciprocity.
So like a shared membership, like the
Yes.
membership to our.
For specifically just for the pool.
Okay. I mean,
Last time we did anything like that was when we had swim team.
so I think there's some membership types that might serve that function really well. There's other membership types, and this is where, Darren, maybe your assistance might be really valuable. Well, we actually get, compensation per visit from the insurance provider, or from like the Silver and Fit, or what are some of the other ones that so we want to encourage those folks to come and visit and swim or recreate with us more than someplace else. And I actually think that's what, Marty, the type of membership that she has. It's one of those, I don't remember which one. Yeah.
But if our purpose is fitness, then maybe we should make arrangements for fitness, you know, during those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think my experience, a shutdown is fairly normal when you have a facility like this. We belong to the golf club, and they do the same thing. They shut down not just for maintenance, but for tournaments. When they have a big tournament, it's a revenue generator for the facility, and, you know, it's part of what we know happens with the members, so. But I do think being transparent about it up front, I appreciate that it's been like that forever, but if we have people that are new into the area, they may not know that, and so I think sort of a truth in advertising kind of proactive communication would make sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on that matter, or can we move on in our agenda? Moving on? Okay. Next up, we have our presentations regarding system development charges, or SDCs, from Doug Goward.
Yes, let me,
Greetings. Could someone enable screen sharing for me?
yes, working on that now. You want to try it?
First class. All right. I think we are cooking with gas. Can you see my slide and only my slide?
We can.
Yes.
All right, I think we got it. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Gabbard. I am a project manager with FCS Group. We do utility rate, system development charges, and a whole bunch of other financial stuff. And I'm here to speak with you about one of my favorite topics, which is system development charges, and kind of give you an overview to perhaps get you started on your journey into parks system development charges. So I'm going to give you a little overview. Some things will be about all kinds of system development charges. Some things will be just about parks. And then hopefully we leave plenty of time. We'll talk about what's on your mind. So let's begin with some very basic facts of SDCs, and then we'll gently go deeper. So SDCs are one-time charges, not ongoing rates. Nobody gets a monthly bill for system development charges. They are paid by developers at the time of development, usually around the same time someone would get a building permit. They tend to pay their system development charges. And in Oregon, system development charges can be imposed for 5 different infrastructure types. Of course, you're only interested in one, but the whole waterfront includes water, wastewater, stormwater, transportation, and indeed parks. An important point is that SDCs are for capital only, both in the way that they are calculated and in how they can be spent. And this might be something that we come back to. The calculations that we do to determine how much you can charge in system development charges, they also constrain how you are able to spend those system development charges that you do charge. SDCs include both existing and future infrastructure cost components. In other words, you have part of your SDC that can be based upon your project list, and part of your SDC can be based upon existing infrastructure under the right circumstances, and we'll talk a little bit about what those circumstances are. And finally, SDCs represent a share of an entire system. When someone pays an SDC, they're not paying for certain projects to be built at some point. They're paying for a share of the entire system and developing capacity in that system as a whole. Now, on what authority do I say all of this stuff? So there is a layer cake of authority when it comes to SDCs. First of all, SDCs are primarily governed by local ordinance, which means that if you decide to start charging them, you will have to have a local ordinance on the books in order to reserve for yourself the authority to do that, and also to specify how you're going to create this new fund and what are the guardrails on that fund and all that good stuff. So that is the primary governance is through local ordinance, but the local ordinance must comply with state statute. In fact, as you read through the law, you'll see a number of places in the state law that says the ordinance governing system development charges must include, and then we'll give details on what kinds of things must be included. Finally, you can make sure you are within your own local ordinance. You can make sure that local ordinance is within the parameters of the state law, but you also have to pay attention to the U.S. Constitution and specifically the Fifth Amendment on takings. When exaction cases get to the Supreme Court, it's usually on those grounds. And so we have to make sure that we are following the legal precedents. There are 3 landmark cases for exactions. I won't bore you with it unless you're interested, and then we can talk about it. But my point here is that there is a whole layer of federal, state, and local authority governing system development charges. The state authority is in Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 223, Sections 297 through 316. And I thought for your pleasure, I would just read that all for you right now. I'm kidding, of course, but we're very familiar with that law, and we tend to make sure that's really why you would hire a consultant to help you with this, is because there's a whole law there that kind of prevents you from just charging whatever you want to charge, and the law is very concerned that you don't overcharge development. You can undercharge as much as you like, but you must follow the principles so that nobody gets overcharged. So, as I alluded to earlier in the first slide, there are a couple of different layers for an SDC, and those layers have names in the state law. There is, first of all, a reimbursement fee, and that is the type of SDC that is based upon existing facilities to the extent that there is available capacity in those facilities. The second layer is the improvement fee, and that is based upon your project list to the extent that those projects will create capacity for future users. And we can talk more if you like about what kind of projects add capacity and what kind of projects don't, because that's really where the rubber hits the road in these kinds of analyses, because you can have a project list that you think might net you a really juicy system development charge, and you might find out halfway through the analysis that a lot of those projects are not really even eligible to be included, and we can talk about why that might be. But those two layers together come together and they form the system development charge. You can have both of those layers in your SDC if they are applicable. This is another way to look at this. Now we're starting to get a little mathy. And so imagine each fee, the reimbursement fee and the improvement fee, as fractions. And so you have eligible costs in the numerator. In one case, they are the eligible cost of unused capacity in existing facilities. In another case, it is the eligible cost of plant facilities that add capacity. But in both cases, those get divided by the growth in system demand, typically measured in either residence, population, or residential equivalents, if you're doing something fancy like charging non-residential development. And you combine those two, and you end up with a system development charge per unit of demand, for example, per capita. And then that then gets applied to different kinds of land uses that get developed, so you charge the right SDC to each individual land use. So if you're hungry, here's some pie. This represents the reimbursement fee, so the whole pie is your existing facilities. A slice of that might be the portion that is available for future users that you can ask new development to buy into. The size of that slice will vary by the particulars of the math of your park system and your project list, and there may not be any slice at all, or the slice could be quite large. It really all depends on what your system is like and what your project list is like. Likewise, your project list can be thought of as a pie, and the portion of that pie that creates capacity for future users is the part that gets put into the system development charge equation to calculate the charge. Now, one of the most common things that we have to let people know about right away is what we mean when we talk about adding capacity. Adding capacity is, importantly, not the same thing as extending life. So let's, for example, I've heard you all talking about a pool tonight. Let's say that your pool gets old and nasty, and at some point you're going to need to replace that pool. You may need to replace the whole building that pool is in, and that will be a very big project when it comes up. And you might wonder, can STCs help you with that? Well, to the extent that you're just replacing one old decrepit asset with a new and shiny asset, no, that's not new capacity. That's just extending life. If instead you said, well, we have one pool now and we want to add a second pool to accommodate the growth in our community, well, now you're talking. Now that's something that might indeed be system development charge eligible. Wouldn't want to leave this discussion without touching on SDC credit. So when a developer applies to develop their subdivision or whatever it might be, you have the right to ask them to build things. You might ask them to build parks, in fact. But they have the right then, if that project was on your SDC list, they have a right to ask for SDC credits. So if the thing that you ask them to build or to buy is required as a condition of development, if it is identified in your capital facilities plan, also known as your project list, and is required, here's the main thing here, is required to provide more capacity than is needed by the development in question. In other words, it's not just to serve that development. Then developers are entitled to credit against their SDCs that they would otherwise have to pay. This is just a little schematic of where SDCs kind of fit in the life cycle of planning. If you're doing, for example, a parks master plan, that's often an excellent time to think about SDCs, because you're putting together a project list, and basically at the same time that you're doing that, you could be thinking about what you're going to be charging for SDCs and how much revenue you will be able to raise from SDCs to implement that project list, and what other monies are you going to need and where's that going to come from. And so it's part of a complete thinking exercise to do it at that time. Now, what we've been talking about so far has really been about SDCs in general. And although you guys may only care about parks, everything I've said so far really applies to all 5 of the infrastructure types that I mentioned early on. But now let's drill down to the specific issues that do affect parks, and I'm calling out 4 of them here. So these are things to think about. These are policy decisions, things that would affect the technical analysis, things that would affect the political palatability of a system development charge, and they would very much be based on what conditions you're experiencing in your local area. I alluded a little bit to the first one, charging non-residential development. Traditionally, park SDCs have been charged mainly to residential development. But we are seeing that change. We are seeing more and more cities and local governments saying, hey, you know, people come to work here. They may not live here, but they come to work, and they maybe want to have their lunch in the park, or they want to go jogging after work, or play softball after work, or whatever. But those cities and local governments are increasingly believing that employment is also a driver of demand for park facilities, and those cities and local governments therefore charge SDCs to non-residential developments. Now, if you're going to do that, you have to create a credible equivalency of demand. So in most cases, what we come up with in practice is that it kind of takes 10 employees to equal the park's demand of 1 resident. And so that the non-residential, they don't get charged a lot, but it is a way, if you believe that non-residential development is creating demand for park services, it's perfectly acceptable to spread that out. The second item here is area-specific SDCs. So you don't just have to have 1 SDC. You could have a whole bunch of them if you want. Usually, when we see this, you have a district or a city that falls into like 3 or 4 natural different geographies where there might be some difference in cost to serve one area over another. And so in those cases, we will essentially create an SDC for each area, and then the money stays in that area. And that the money staying in the area where it's raised is usually one of the key reasons why a local government will go in that direction. If there is some mistrust of the agency to spread the money out equitably through the whole territory of the municipality, area-specific SDCs might be a way to create some accountability for that. We don't recommend area-specific SDCs. We recommend that the agency retain the flexibility to use the money where it's needed, but local political conditions will dictate what is needed. Number three, facility categories and unique projects. So if you embark upon an SDC study, you'll learn that one of the arts of doing an SDC analysis is how you categorize your park facilities. And I spoke to this a little earlier when we talked about pools. Everything that we're trying to assign an eligibility for, that eligibility is going to be largely based upon how many of those things do you currently have and how many do you plan to build. And if you want to build a special facility that you don't currently have at all, that's very tough to make SDC eligible, because I'm going to ask you, well, what is your level of service for that type of facility? And you're going to say, well, we don't have one. Okay, so your level of service is doing so. But that's why categorizing projects is a bit of an art, and there are ways to do that. And usually, the less unique a project is, the better it is for using SDCs. The final thing I want to note here is scaling SDCs by size of residence. This is a very hot and very current issue, and we have done some work in this area with City of Albany, City of Newport. You might be familiar with some of that, and we've gotten a hold of good data that correlates the size of the dwelling with the number of residents that are in the dwelling, and we find that the number of residents increases with the size up to a certain point, and then that relationship stops. And so we've helped cities develop fee schedules that reflect that fact, but still provide some sort of scaling and some sort of benefit for smaller dwellings that are more modest. Here, this is something that I referred to earlier. This is the scaled approach. This is something that we did in Silverton, where it shows how we calculate for each side a number of residents, and then we use the SDC per capita to calculate how much needs to be paid within certain limits on both sides. Number of residents never goes below 1, and then it never goes above that peak on the graph that I just showed you, where the occupancy tops out and actually might start coming down again the bigger you get. That is a whole bunch of words, and I'm interested in talking about what's on your mind now.
Thank you, Doug.
You bet.
I'm actually going back to my master's program taught by the the CFO of Providence, and he had a whole section about this. It just wasn't called that. Is there an equivalent in dealing to a system charge type with dealing with FTEs for employees? Because that was something we were set to. We had to run a hospital, and that was part of his, and do the budget and that kind of thing. So some of this is really familiar to me. It's just got a different name. And so do you see any kind of correlation with, FTEs for employees and this type of jargon for system development charge?
Well, I can't speak to what you're talking about, but system development charges are absolutely cannot be used for operating expenses. So your staffing, except for the people who are involved in constructing projects, but your operating staff, that cannot be funded by SDCs.
No, that's no.
Doug, how do SDCs end?
Say that again?
How do SDCs end? So when you finish a project that's on your project list, does your SDC go down?
No, not necessarily. So your SDC is calculated at a point in time when you have a project list that probably goes out several years, maybe 20 years, and you have a growth forecast that goes out that same 20 years, and you are naturally going to be doing projects during that time. People are going to be moving in. You're gonna some projects are going to become irrelevant before they are constructed, and you're going to be substituting those with different projects. The beauty of it is that the SDC as a unit charge is still valid through all of that. So in its essence, a system development charge is the unit charge of growth. It is the required cost of capacity per unit of growth, per new resident, you might say. And that relationship is more stable until the next time that you decide to recalculate your STCs. And as your, as a district becomes more mature, the dynamics of new capacity and new growth, they'll begin to change. But if both of those things are changing at once, it's not predictable how that will end up in the system development charge. But SDCs, they don't necessarily end in the sense that you meant it.
Well, I mean, we gotta talk to this stuff for our constituents. It's hard for me to go forward and say, hey, we need this money for these projects, and the projects will be good for the entire community. Oh, and then when the projects are completed, we're just going to keep going.
Well, by the time you construct some of those projects, you're going to have another capital plan, and those capital plans will have another 20 years worth of projects.
Then do you have the same community engagement requirements for plan changes as you do for implementation of a plan?
So there are no real community engagement requirements. There is a notice period where you have to give notice of your public hearing to adopt SDCs at least 90 days in advance. But I think you will find that the community, meaning residents, are not that interested in system development charges. Rather, the development community will be very interested, and they can be dealt with in more targeted ways.
You mean builders, so you mean people who are going to be doing construction and building, right? They're going to be interested because they're going to be paying those fees, right? Yeah.
So do remodels require system development charges?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. That is a graduate level question. For the purpose of parks, that question is so much more interesting if you're talking like water and sewer. But for purpose of parks, if your SDC is defined, let's say you have an SDC for a single family residence. So if that house gets remodeled and maybe someone adds a bedroom, maybe someone creates, they put heat in their garage. Well, at the end of that project, you still have a single family residence, right? Mm-hmm. So no, there is no incremental SDC. But if you take one of these scaled approaches and you start charging per square foot, now you start scrutinizing the remodeling plans to see if they add square feet, and that incremental square footage would indeed be could be captured in an incremental system development charge. So it depends, is the answer.
So one of my questions, Doug, is, as a tourist community, I'm wondering what the impact here is when so many of the people that might use our facilities, like for a soccer tournament or something like that, like they're not full-time residents, so they're not actually occupying. And so I'm just wondering how that works with. So one of the things that we're playing with, and this is what I'm about to describe, is by no means standard practice that we do everywhere. But we are working with Lincoln City right now, and one of the things that we're doing for them is we are creating a sort of a transient layer where we try to assess the demand of visitors, specifically visitors who stay in lodging units, and then we add a layer of SDC onto the lodging units. Now,
if you're also charging SDCs to non-residential development, that SDC is typically based upon expected number of employees. So in that situation, you could have a lodging development, a hotel, that has part of its SDC because of its employees and part of its SDC because of its guests. And so that's, we've developed, you know, sort of a mathematical framework to do that credibly. And so the answer to your question is yes, that there is a way to capture that. If that supports, that can be done.
So if we have 400 vacation rentals in this city, and, you know, they rent them out half the year, does that walk into the scaling, or does that walk into the single-family resident, or is that a charge for the person who owns that as the SDC? What is?
Yeah, so this is another question we get a lot, and it's important to remember when this fee gets applied. It gets applied at the time of construction, when all you know about the building is what's in the blueprints, and you have no idea who's going to be in it, you have no idea how many people are going to be in it, you have no idea whether it's going to be a vacation rental. So there is no specific way to get at that. If it's a single-family residence, it's a single-family residence.
So for parks, for us, how are we applying what skills you offer?
Who said I was offering any skills?
Well, I value your time and your expertise, so.
So I'm not sure I'm following your question, but I'd be happy to answer it.
Well, what are we doing that needs an SDC, Tyler?
What are we doing? I think there's lots of things that we're doing. I mean, right now it's good timing, Doug, because we're in the middle, or I don't know, 2/3 of the way done with the strategic plan. So I think that's going to be really informative. But I think a lot of the things that we're aiming to do at the SDC to expand programs and services there would, from what I understand, would potentially have a fit with this. There's also a lot of areas, you know, we're talking about branching out of what we have been known for. We were started just as a pool, and then we started offering other things like youth programs and recreation and fitness and special events. What we don't have is a lot of park amenity space, and by statute, by ORS, like that's part of our responsibility. So, you know, you talk about maybe not necessarily in the city of Seaside, but maybe some of the other areas within our district that don't have access to park space. SDCs could help us, could be a funding mechanism to develop park space in some of those areas, places in the northern half of the district boundaries or other places, not, like I said, not in Seaside, because I think Seaside has done a good job with their park infrastructure, but I think those are the kind of questions that we might, you know, get answers to as if we were to go down this road a little bit further.
I will say that SDCs are great at helping you keep up with growth. If your community is growing and you feel a desire to keep the level of service, in other words, kind of the ratio, you know, acres per 1,000 residents, just to give you one very blunt measure. If you have a desire to keep up on your level of service, but might not be able to do it with your current funding mechanisms, then SDCs are a great way to take some pressure off. SDCs are to help you keep up, not to catch up. So if the desire is to have a whole bunch of new things that you didn't have before, SDCs aren't great at that, because there will be a level of service analysis to determine what is fair to put on the backs of developers, and you know what you mostly can get away with is kind of increasing the quantity of what's already there. It's more complicated than that, but that's a good way to think of it.
So it's like, to me, level of service and capacity are kind of together, you know, as far as I can tell.
That's right.
So, you know, I know, you know, I could take Broadway Field as an example of how the city and the Park District came together and we got a new turf field. $400,000 of that capital came from the city's STCs.
So the city has a park SDC?
The city has STCs. They're already collecting STCs for, you know, every subdivision that goes in here. People are
Water, sewer,
paying for sewer, they're paying for water, you're paying for power, you know, underground stuff. And, you know, as the city expands, the parks needs to be reviewed in that capacity. The parks should always be at the table. Now, I've worked with the city parks for a long time. There is no parks department. It's basically a street department. But those STCs went to help match the grant, the state grant, which we got, which was sizable, to help put that new field in.
So, Doug, we don't have a monopoly. So the city overlaps our boundaries, and the city has its own parks. And I don't know if they levy SECs for parks, but my question would be, if they're levying SDCs for parks and we try to levy SDCs for parks, will we come into a conflict?
Potentially, and I'm glad you raised that issue, because it is okay to have overlapping jurisdictions that charge their own SDCs for their own facilities. The only unforgivable sin is to charge for the same capacity in two different places. As long as you keep the lists straight and distinct, you can charge along with the cities. You certainly have the authority to do that. It's just we would want to make it conspicuous that you are charging for different capacity than the city is charging for. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay. Okay.
So Doug, I have a question about just in general, so Seaside is an area that has struggled with not enough housing units in general, and specifically not enough affordable housing units. And we are highly constrained on available land in our jurisdiction, and so this has been a topic. And I'm just curious about sort of is there any data or literature that speaks to the impact of SDCs on new development and affordability, affordable new development?
Well, it does have an effect. SDCs do, to whatever extent, they do increase the cost of production, and so that will in turn affect the equilibrium of what gets charged. Mm-hmm. Now, it may not be dollar for dollar. It may be more than dollar for dollar. That's a market question. I always get annoyed when people talk about the cost of things and how they get passed on to the person buying the house. The markets don't work that way. But it is true that any increase in the cost will shift the supply and demand equilibrium, and it can indeed result in higher
there any place where it is applied, like, and I am also thinking about like some of the creative stuff going on, like with the ADUs, for instance, and do ADUs that are intended to be sort of a response to lack of housing units. Like, are there situations where ADUs, for instance, aren't?
What's an AD?
Accessory dwelling unit, where you're allowed to put like a
Tiny house
cottage
in your
on
backyard.
your, cottage in your backyard, for instance. So, but are SDCs universally applied, or is there room for, discrepancy depending on the kind of construction?
So let me answer that carefully. There is room for identifying differential impact. So for example, ADUs are smaller, and you would not expect them to have the same number of people inside them as regular single-family dwellings. And so it is reasonable that an ADU would pay less of an SDC than the single-family residence that it's with. What I would steer you away from is choosing to favor certain kinds of developments purely on policy grounds. Like we want to give this kind of dwelling a break just because we want to give it a break. Well, this is rate making. This is not taxation. And in rate making, there needs to be a nexus with service provided, or in this case, the burden on the infrastructure system. So if there is a genuine finding that a certain dwelling has less impact on the infrastructure system, that's a totally reasonable reason to give it a lower charge. But don't do it arbitrarily, if that makes sense.
Yep, that makes sense, thanks.
It's good. You're a very, very clear presenter. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Is your PowerPoint available to us?
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, it's already written into the sunset.
It's not in your packet, but he did send it to me.
Great, yeah.
Doug, can you share, I'm curious, I guess, my recollection from working with John previously and hearing him present a little bit and having this be a frequent topic of conversation in some of the state circles that I run in, is that your company, the FCS group, they kind of assist. Basically, once we have a strategic plan, they'll assist us from start to finish in moving this along if it's something that we choose to pursue. Is that accurate?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and you would get to define what you want help with, but let me just give you let me just name some things that you might want to think about. There's the whole public outreach and education thing, mainly the development community, but maybe a little bit to the public. You'll want the public to know that there's going to be some pressure taken off of their property taxes for things that need to be built. And so there's that educational component, especially if you've never had an SDC before. Then there is the analytic work of, okay, taking your project list, taking your current inventory and cranking the numbers out. There's the legal process, because you haven't done this before, you need an ordinance. And so that's something that if you would want our help, we could offer that. And then there's the whole adoption process, where there is a notice period, and we'll help you get that notice out, give you a template for that, and make sure that you observe the 90 days and you have the report that you need to make available for public inspection. We'll make sure you do everything according to the law, and then get it adopted. But then wait, there's more. So there's also kind of regular maintenance, if you want there to be, of the SDC. So for a number of park districts, I'm doing this right now for Willamette Lane Parks and Rec in Springfield. Every year we calculate their cost index for them, and this is something that's specifically allowed in the law. You don't have to think about your SDCs each year, but they can be adjusted by inflation. You just have to define what inflation means for your park SDC, and so we help them with that each year. And it's just a very small engagement, and then things will come up at irregular intervals that may seem weird if you haven't dealt with them before. There will come a time when you want to swap projects from your SDC list. You want to swap it with another project, all of which is completely allowable, and you want to know how to do that safely, and so there's ongoing help too. I mean, we won't go away, but we'll only help you as much as you want.
Okay. And then just another quick question. We don't do, like, we're a park district, so we don't collect building permits and, you know, that stuff that goes through, you know, either the city or the county. Are those the entities that would collect the SDCs on our behalf, or and then they would pass those funds to us, or is it always through the county?
That's right.
Okay.
So now you need an IGA, right?
Of course.
And that's how those relationships work.
Okay. I just didn't know if that's something that, like, our finance department would have to start, you know, have mechanisms in place for collecting those. That seems fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad we don't have to do it.
Just one final question for me. Is there an upper limit on how much you can charge in SDCs? It's entirely project-based?
We're going for the gold here.
Well, no, I'm just trying to wrap my head around how much SDCs impact overall market values of property.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a couple of different things there. So the straight answer to your question is no. There is no dollar limit in statute. There is just these are the things that you have to think about when you calculate it, and don't go any higher than that. And that's what you get in the law. And what that results in is you know, frequently we calculate SDCs that are in excess of $10,000 per single-family residence. Now, just because we calculate that doesn't mean you have to charge it. So when we do an SDC calculation, what that represents to you is a ceiling. And wherever you decide to land under that ceiling, you don't need a reason, you don't need a finding, you don't need anything. You just need to stay at or under the ceiling.
What that calculation gives us is what our cost of new growth is, what our cost per person, what our cost per worker, what that is. Irrespective of whether we ever charge it or not, we would at least have the number about what growth is costing us.
You are right, sir, and I have been waiting for the day that I have given these numbers, not just for parks, but, you know, for water and sewer and transportation in particular. I have been waiting to tell people what we've calculated, and I'm waiting for someone to say, gosh, if that's really what growth costs, maybe we're doing this wrong. And I don't get a lot of that. Not a lot of people say that. But yes, you're right. What we calculate is essentially a unit cost of growth, and it's none of the operating cost is purely capital costs. So it's just one layer.
Just as an example, can you tell me what the total SDCs are for a new house construction in Portland that's, I don't know, 2,500 square feet? What is, because they're going to charge the maximum. What does it cost a builder to build a house?
I don't have that right in front of me, so I don't know. I mean, it would not surprise me that it's five figures, I'm sure. But I don't have the exact dollar figure.
Okay.
They do tend to be higher in higher value communities. So your Portland, your Lake Oswego, so they tend to be higher there, and they tend to be lower in communities, not because they're calculated lower, but because smaller communities or more rural communities are concerned with competitiveness. They're concerned that development will flee if they impose these charges. So I don't have a dollar figure for you, but
Okay.
you can generalize a little bit.
That's it for me.
Any
Yeah.
other questions?
No, I was looking to see if I could find what Seaside's, system development charges
Yeah, I
are.
found a document on their website, but it says systems development processing fees.
Mm-hmm, I see that one too.
But
And if I may suggest, if you really want to get your geek on with this stuff, the League of Oregon Cities does an annual, I don't know that they do it every year, but they have a mostly annual survey of SDCs, and there is a wealth of data in there.
Yeah, there it is, I found it, the report. Okay, April 2023.
And do you find
Sorry.
when an entity is looking at doing something like this, like what drives, I mean, maybe it's a chicken and the egg syndrome, like, is it usually a question of, like, is it first that the entity, like, that we would be doing our strategic plan and saying this is what we see as far as capacity needs as we move forward over the next 5, 10, 20 years, and that we then start crafting an SDC, or, yeah, what's usually the process? Or do you say, hey, look, we could charge this, and what are we gonna do with it? Yeah.
So you can really jump in at any point. I mean, for an agency that has not had an SDC before, usually the presenting issue is, oh crap, we got to build some stuff, and we don't have any money, and that means that you just jump into wherever you are, and we start putting together project lists from what you have, your current capital plans, your current master plan if you have one. We start putting projects together and creating a list. We don't have to be loyal to any existing list as long as whatever list we end up using gets adopted. So we can create a project list sort of de novo as long as it gets adopted by the board. And then we just, and furthermore, likewise, we're not bound to be loyal to any particular official growth forecast. And so, we could ask you or the cities around you, or look at Portland State's data, and we could whip up a valid SDC with very little thinking in advance on your part. And then as you go through the cycle of planning and your facilities planning, we can refine that, look at it again. This should be looked at every, 5 years or so. You should recalculate your SDCs fully. And then in between those times, using those inflationary adjustments to make sure that you're hedging your price risk.
I'm curious, just because this is sort of plays a big part in our strategic plan. So one of our recent purchases that you may or may not know about is that we purchased the old middle school in Seaside largely to be able to increase our capacity. In hearing that you said it can't be for replacement costs, for facilities, but really we're looking at opening up space that currently is not usable into space that would be usable for Park and Recreation District. And so I'm wondering, is that a replacement cost, is that a new cost, or how does that factor in?
So that could end up, that kind of thing could end up being a reimbursable cost, and that could be folded into a reimbursement fee. So now it's all very mathematical in doing the level of service calculation. If your level of service in a certain category will actually be going down over a forecast period, that means that you have some capacity now that you don't really need because your future level of service is going to be less. And that available capacity that you have now can't be folded into a reimbursement fee. A reimbursement fee can be a very handy thing to have because with the improvement fee, that's the part of the SDC that's based upon projects. Any improvement fee money that you collect has to be spent on those projects that were in the calculation to begin with. With a reimbursement fee, then you don't have that restriction. You can spend reimbursement fee dollar on any parks related capital project, whether it's growth related or not. So any excess capacity that we can identify will really benefit you if we can charge a reimbursement fee for it.
Because we put in that fire alarm system.
I don't think, do we have any more questions, Alex?
I don't have any more.
No?
Thanks.
This has been great.
Thanks.
Wow, I feel like I just,
We could do a workshop on this.
a lot of information, that was great.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to hang out with you guys.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Take care.
That was very succinct, I thought.
Yeah.
The way you did that and gave us food for thought. But, you know, we look at that, you know, how those STCs can actually help us match grants, you know, and instead of going for a bond, we do grants and we have STC funds, we might be able to save the community money in the long run and let development pay for it,
Oh, like growth cake.
let growth pay for it.
Yeah. Well, my nephew just built a house in Portland and he paid $85,000 for SDC.
Yeah,
Not him, but the builder.
right, part of the construction.
That would be, sorry, I found what you referenced.
That's good.
Be at the higher end. It looks like they have a combined estimated SDC cost for fiscal year 2022. In the North Coast, combined estimated SDC cost is $4,813. In the metro area, it's near $30,000, and that's the highest in the state. Other areas in the valley are typically in between 10 and 15. One area is as high as
What does
20,000.
Seaside charge now? Or
We
don't
were,
know?
we were able to find it on their website, the document that I found, it looks like it's less than $1,000. I don't actually know if they have a park SDC. I know they have an SDC, but I don't know if it's for parks. I think it might be for sewer or water, or maybe a combination of
Transportation.
Yeah.
All right, next item, I'll keep us moving along, is a review of financials.
Board minutes.
Oh, sorry, approval of board meeting minutes, thank you,
So moved.
from September 26th.
Well, I, wait a minute.
Oh,
Because I asked, did you hear anything about my board comment from any of your employees? Okay, so when you read my board comment, will you please tell me what that sentence means? Go find it, because it'll be, you'll figure it out. Because I'm sorry, I don't understand what it says. It's like the third line down.
Grateful for the fact that they are doing education and providing expertise in the aquatic field.
For the whole district and is held by the board. What?
Yeah, you offered some comment about, I just put this together, I think on Thursday or Friday. You offered some comment about the board, and you kind of talked about some of the aquatic staff members and in-services, and yeah, I tried to summarize it, if you don't feel like I did it accurately.
Well, I just don't know what that says.
Oh.
She is grateful for the fact that they are doing education and providing expertise in the aquatic field for the whole district, and is held by the board. What's held by the board mean?
Yeah, maybe it should say helped by the board, I don't know, let me review.
I mean, I'm sorry, I just didn't know what that meant, so.
It's a little confusing.
And I asked a couple of your employees, because I just didn't have time to connect with you.
I don't know.
Well, I
I
told.
mean, I'm the one that doesn't, so you.
I know, I told Darren, I
they're
said,
gonna
I'm
look at
sorry,
you
there's a
like,
sentence there, I just have no clue.
So do you want to offer an amendment to that statement?
Well, I don't know what I was
We have a
saying.
motion on the floor.
We did have a motion?
Yeah, we do, and then now we have
Well,
a.
see,
Oh, I didn't hear.
he tried the motion, and I said, wait.
Yeah, I didn't hear the motion.
So give a second, you've already had your discussion, and then we'll make the amendment.
Okay.
Well, how do you accept it in minutes if you have to go back and listen to the tape?
Well, I would just recommend that we remove the words "and is held by the board."
You know, you were talking about your family issues.
Well, I was talking about quite a bit, and I know there was something
Well,
about.
you rambled, Sue, but that's okay.
Respectfully speaking, the meeting minutes need to reflect the business of the board, and the board comment is really, I mean, I don't think it necessarily is a crucial part of the document.
Well, I mean, because the point that I wanted to address was the threat we were having from someone who was in the community who was gonna challenge the safety of Broadway Middle School. And so I know that was my focus, so I'm not quite sure what that says.
Maybe the word held should be replaced by understood, or respected, or appreciated by the board. I'm not sure. I can go back and adjust it if you'd like.
I'm sorry, I don't know what, see, it doesn't make sense to me. So, the rest of the minutes were fine.
Okay.
So we need to amend the motion?
Just tell me what
Are we gonna
language you want to
delete
do.
I don't know, what am I supposed to?
So are you saying that you want the tape to be reviewed to accurately reflect what you were talking about? Or are you satisfied with simply amending this to the spirit of what you wanted to say?
I don't know what that sentence says.
But we're saying it doesn't matter, it's wrong, we know it's wrong.
So just,
So it's your choice. Would you prefer, I think what we're hearing is that it's, because it's not consequential to the board business, it was your opinion. So you would have a choice of, do we need to go back and try to vet out what your opinions were by listening to the tape? Or are you okay with making an amendment to this sentence, edit it to whatever you think you wanted to say?
I don't remember I mean, there's been too much trauma in my life this month, so I don't know what I was saying, except I was addressing the safety of SRC, because there was a direct threat. And so I know the last sentence, directly addresses that it is safe.
Right.
And that's why I think there was something in that, I think that was addressing that threat. And I just don't remember what at this point. So,
Good. Could I just suggest that I'll go back and review the tape and just bring the September meeting minutes to our next meeting as well? Is that okay?
Or just that section of the training.
or I can come to your office and listen.
Table minutes.
Yeah.
Okay,
We've done that before. It's
Yeah, probably motion.
okay.
Okay.
Next item is to review our financials for September 2023.
I have a comment. First, thanks, you guys. I mean, there were just a couple of scrivener's errors on this financial page that these guys fixed, and I appreciate that. It makes it easier to understand. I noticed under revenue, we've recovered 60% and change of our special events revenue so far this year, since July. We're way out in front. And then, but in our special event costs, it seems like we're not recovering our costs of the special events. And if we don't intend to, that's fine.
I was looking at the three numbers, for, year-to-date, 26,000, and trying to add up the 10 and the 10,000 plus the 4,000 plus the 15,000, and wondering where, I mean, that didn't add up to me.
Well, we spent 30 and took in 26, and that's fine, as long as that's what we intend to do.
Well, I think this, to me, sort of speaks to the 100% cost recovery piece, and I think, I don't know, I think you're right, like, are we?
Well, we could have prepaid for some future special event, that could have caused the cost to increase a little bit, and we'll recover the revenue then next month or the month after that.
But in other words, our special events aren't paying for themselves, is that basically what you're saying?
Well, I'm asking.
Yeah.
Are they supposed to pay for themselves?
Good question, yeah.
Well, I think, so, our general practice when we're budgeting is that the events cover their own costs. However, they do not cover the cost of the staff time. So that's why we have a full-time staff person that's over recreation and special events. And there's several special event workers that do various duties depending on the special event. I think, sorry, I got confused because I think we're comparing the revenues and the expenses and expecting those to add up. Sue, I was confused by your comment, but nevertheless, I think the 62% is a result of us having front-loaded, just by way of the calendar year, more of our special events earlier in this fiscal year.
Okay.
And that's traditional. Farmers market, chalk art contest, break the chain run. We've had turkey trot, which probably isn't on here in terms of revenues.
Yeah, 5K too.
But
Yeah.
it may be on there in terms of costs.
Sure. So,
Can I
yeah, go ahead.
add one quick thing? I think we had talked about this last time too, is Providence is on a different type of year, and so they end up kind of giving everything all at once in one invoice,
okay.
and then it comes in and we have to do it that way. That's
Fair
kind of, yeah, that's
fair
why
enough.
it kind of,
Fair enough.
so like they give it right on that July 1st date, but then it goes through the rest of the year.
Thanks, Chris.
But I think you've got a good point. I mean, our special events is scheduled, our budgeted to only bring in 41
Out of 90.
out of 90,
Yeah.
right? So it's,
Mhm.
I mean, that is by design. We're not doing a full cost recovery of,
But those costs are inflated by the staff time
right.
that represents. But and just as a matter of policy, we should probably at some point have a discussion, maybe the budget time, how much we expect to recover from special events.
Sure.
I think to me, it is part of when I think to me it's an important consideration around the strategic plan. We have a pot of money, and where do we want to invest that money in serving the community, right? And so the question is I mean, I sometimes have asked the question, like, how many people benefit from the special events? Because that would make a difference to me of how much of our pot do we want. So if it was 12 people.
Or how much benefit.
How much benefit per person, right, exactly. Versus, for instance, we heard about the senior center and how many people are benefiting from that, from our meals, the meals in the senior center. And so I think there is sort of this cost-benefit analysis that I'm not quite sure that we're at. I think we are starting to get there some from the 100% cost recovery. There was some analysis there. But I think it's a legit question.
And I'm not opposed to subsidizing,
Right.
special events if there's a benefit.
If there's a benefit, right. Sue, did you get your question answered?
I'm lost.
Okay. Will you have to be pound, or do you want to save your question for when you have some time and we can chat?
Well, I'm just trying to, so when we look, what I circled here was the year-to-date under special events and the percentage used. And so I'm looking at 26 plus, in the special events area, 26%, 19%, 52%. And up in revenues, we've got 62%. And am I comparing apples and oranges?
Kind of.
Yeah, a little. So I think looking at the subtotal for special event expenses, you'll see the total of staffing, the taxes and benefits, and the MS&S, materials, supplies, and services, added up, right? So that's at 33% year-to-date. And then if you look at revenue, we're at 62% year-to-date. So yes, revenue is higher substantially than special events, but as Chris explained, and there's probably even other reasons and other sponsors that have come in, that's fairly normal, because we're only 25% through the fiscal year. And
Right.
what you will recall, my experience at least, is that over the course of the fiscal year, these things tend to work itself out.
Mhm.
And we monitor them closely, and that's part of why we provide these reports. I think it's really important that we're saying to the board, you know, here's the information that we have, but we're not gonna get so far off track that it's hard to put the train back. But, I think right now, there's nothing, at least to me, Chris, Darren, or you all might feel differently, but there's nothing abnormal about any of these figures. They're just, especially at the start of the budget year, the fiscal year, things are really shifting around quite a bit, and it looks, the numbers can be skewed one way or the other just because of the newness of the year.
I also think, Sue, and I don't know if this will help you at all, but we addressed this last year, where the column titles at the top where it says percent used can be a little bit confusing, because we have not used 62% of the revenue for special events. We've brought in 62% of the revenue.
Mhm.
Correct.
Yeah.
We have used, if you go down to the bottom part where there's the expenses, we have spent 33%
Yeah.
of this special event.
And that's only 8% higher than the quarter of the year.
Yeah,
So then, considering that's our highest, you know, is our high season for events, you know, that's not bad.
that would make sense, yeah.
It's
And
okay.
not counting the staff, our commitment to staffing these events, you know, we budgeted 41 to take in, and we're spending 51 for materials and other stuff. So that's fair. I just want to make sure that we
Yeah.
do it intentionally.
Sure.
So do we have do you have more questions, Sue?
No, that was my only one.
Okay. Do we have any other questions on finances?
I have none other unless, I would move that we approve them.
I do have a
General.
question about the checks. One question.
So let's go through those.
Okay.
And it's just simply Tyler Technologies, we had 2 checks. Is there a reason why? I mean, one was 9/15 and one was 9/28.
It's a good
Is there
question.
a reason why? Because we had the $12,589 and then an additional $2,100. I was just curious.
I see the one, I'm looking for the other one.
It's on the second page, the middle one.
Yeah, maybe, Mr. Darren can,
They're gonna be the licenses and fees. It's just sometimes we get invoiced since it's technically one company, but it's also a company that buys other smaller companies. So they're not always interconnected, so sometimes we get the one for this half of it, and then we get a different one a couple weeks after.
Yeah, we get the one for Encode, and then we get the one for Exacticon at a,
So it's not always all
at a later date.
the big picture, this is all our finance and payroll software.
And then, yes, we have, so the actual Encode would be our finance one, and then the Exacticon is gonna be all the timekeeping, but then that's actually a company that they all out of, and so they're connected, but they're not always connected.
I'm sure that's a good explanation. I can't hear you way back
Right, hold on, Mike. Bring it up. 2 different, they're the same company, but invoices come in at different times because they're just 2 different services.
Thank you.
I see also that we may want to do, before we entertain a motion for finances, if there's a clarification from you, Chris. I appreciated seeing that, and I appreciate the transparency.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that, whether or not that would be good to involve me.
That's why we have it in here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not in here.
Well, there's.
I mean, it wasn't in the numbers because it wasn't
No.
ours. It's just on this piece of paper.
Hey, can I explain a little bit more stuff? It is in the numbers because since it's on the bank statement, if we didn't add it on, and let's say our bank statements were ever reviewed, then it wouldn't match what we had in our system. So even though it was a mistake that on the bank side, we had nothing to do with it, it still shows up on our statements and, it could technically look like we had been hiding something.
See, I didn't see it on this list.
Well, it's not gonna be on that list, so it wasn't a check that we wrote.
Okay.
It was a deposit that was made at a
Right.
different branch in a different city. They just happened to put it into ours on accident. Back office realized it, took it out, so even though it went in and out,
Yeah,
it still records it on our statement.
It didn't tell us.
They did not
I have
tell us.
questions about the security of that transaction, and whether or not our bank is involved, but I don't know how anyone can accidentally make a deposit. It's always great when people make a deposit in your bank account. But if it was not an authorized deposit, if no one has the authority to deposit into our account, then there's a legal problem there. But taking the money out without our authority or knowledge is a problem. I don't care how good, and to me, it looks like money laundering. So I'm wondering if we should find out more about what happened at that bank, or whether or not our finances are secure with this bank that we're dealing with.
And
You know what I mean? That's what's my thoughts on the
Kind
matter.
of talking about that and working on writing out a communication piece with the bank.
That warrants an investigation by somebody.
Yeah, we have some of the same concerns, Mike. This was,
I imagine so.
something that, we hadn't heard or expected to happen. And, we're still working through some of our recourse, I think, options, with the bank, and making sure that, our financials are safe, to be held there.
Yeah.
But I think for the purpose of this meeting, at least for now, we wanted to make sure that the board understood and that this is going to affect the financials. It's a significant amount, obviously, but it's not in the grand scheme of the budget. Maybe it doesn't get noticed, but it's important. And especially as we are working through some of those recourses with our bank, or maybe even considering a potential change, we wanted to make sure that the board was aware that this is an impetus potentially for that.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate, but it's kind of weird. If it had happened in my household.
So did we discover this error, or was it corrected on the bank side?
They corrected it. It was over a weekend, so when I came in, it was between Monday and Tuesday, and looked, I saw a deposit, which isn't totally unusual, because it could be an ACH from one of our other people. I didn't recognize the name. Then you scroll up to a couple days after when they realized it and pulled it out. So it's kind of like a Friday that I went in, and on Monday or Tuesday that the back office went, oh, nope, we made a mistake. So then I, called their local branch. They were able to tell me that it was just a mistake, and that's why it had been out. Because both amounts matched, it zeroed out, so I knew that at least.
So, are you comfortable with what they told you?
I mean, it would be worse if it wasn't someone from the bank. I think that it was the bank and that they put it in and took it out. We do have things on our account where it's called positive pay. So if anything that I don't input comes up, it'll alert me, and I have to go in and actually manually approve it unless I've already given the okay. So like the checks that I provide you, I have to input them into the bank. If one comes in that isn't on that approved list, then it flags it and I go in and review it. Same now with the ACH stuff. So if an ACH comes in, then I have to actually go in, approve it, say yep, it's good to go.
and then it can be on an auto-approved list, but that's only for ones like, because we have certain bills that we know that are gonna come out every single time. So you can have that.
Would this be, could this be criticized by an auditor?
I mean, that's something we're gonna work on and let him know. I think he would be more on the side of, I don't want to speak for Rick, but I think he would probably agree that, you know, we have to be able to show our steps, because, I mean, on their side, it's probably gonna be criticized by their auditor because they did make that mistake, but it shows that our control processes work, and that's what he's gonna look at. Did we notice it?
Right.
It would be an audit issue if, let's say, I didn't notice and it went 6 months by and he goes, well, what is this? Then yeah, that would be an audit issue. But because our processes caught it, then that just shows that the processes that he audits are correct.
Nice work, Chris. Nice work.
Is there a reference that this bank knows to communicate with us if it would happen again, assuming we stay with them?
I think there's an expectation that we've issued to the bank. As you recall, our bank has gotten consolidated late, and so I think there's been, I'm not making an excuse for them, but I think there's been maybe some hiccups in that consolidation, especially regionally, maybe even locally. So, you know, we're kind of doing our best to manage the risk. I think switching or even considering a switch is a really big project, something for us to consider, and we've been kind of having many discussions about it for probably 2 or 3 months now. So we'll continue to discuss that, and I think, I don't know, I guess I feel like whereas we can chastise the bank and things like that, maybe that's what we want to do, but I want to make sure that the board understands that we're like on top of this. Like Chris caught it instantly, basically, and then he's been in good communication with Darren and myself about it, and you know, we want it to be transparent and open. I think obviously it's not our fault, but we want to make sure that the board understands that this happened. So that's the takeaway. It's unfortunate, but we'll keep working, and obviously we're going to bring that kind of big decision back to you in some way for your consideration.
This sort of raised a question for me, just separate, but related, I guess, is what is our reconciliation process, like for approvals and stuff, and just...
So,
yeah.
All bank statements go directly into Skylar's box, they're sealed.
Okay.
And then they get signed by him so he can review them. Then it comes to me. I end up, you know, doing the full bank reconciliation, top to bottom. And then Darren is able to sign off once he sees that.
Great, okay, that's great, so.
Yeah, so we have different layers.
Protecting, because I just don't, I mean, you can't avoid, things happen, and people make, the staff makes mistakes in other places.
There's other smaller things that are built in, like there's a mail log even at the front desk, so that bills are, it shows, you know, bills are coming in.
Stamped and...
So I think that's the piece, we need to make sure our processes are safe and catch things, and it sounds like in this, it worked perfectly, so kudos. I mean, I think that
Lots of
worked like it
fingerprints on the
should.
knife.
Yeah.
Exactly, that have everybody on. Perfect.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one, or any of the tracks?
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Got it.
Thanks,
Did you want to move forward? I know.
I move that we approve the financials in September.
Okay. So Mike made a motion, Kyle seconded, all in favor? Kyle? Aye? Sue?
Aye.
Mike? I'm an aye?
I heard.
Motion passes.
Yay.
All right, it looks like we have a staff presentation from Aaron.
Thanks for waiting.
Oh, of course.
Get that out of the way.
It is not working at all?
No, it's
That'll work.
Do you need
been
Darren?
not working for about 45 minutes.
Oh, you need Darren to try it? Okay.
I don't know, I probably.
Because he hasn't heard anything for 45 minutes.
I know, maybe it's the microphone, I don't know.
There we go.
Well, the good news is we're working on it.
Is that,
You know, it just kind of locks up.
you just tell me and I'll.
Kind of hold it in there.
Okay.
But, Stan,
And you just
once we get the
scroll down.
microphone working, if you can just stand kind of close to that little table, that way Mike can
I
sing
can use this. Okay, is that what it is? Oh, okay, I wasn't seeing it, I didn't know to scroll down.
All right, well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight, and I would love to be able to share a little bit about what we're doing and
Engage aren't working.
a little bit about, our World in Youth program, so.
I tried this earlier and everything was working good. There we go.
There we go. Awesome. So I wanted to include a quote here. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing I've ever had. And the reason that I wanted to start off tonight with this is, and I think even last year when I presented, you know, I really want to focus on the fact that our staff are really the backbone of our programming. Nothing that we have going on at SRC would exist if we didn't have a group of pretty incredible people that are there loving our kiddos and providing some pretty awesome programming. So what I did, I wanted to share a little bit of them with you tonight, and so instead of showing pictures or telling you what classrooms they work in, I asked them a few questions. I said, what do you love about your job? What is something that maybe you want the board to know? What's really difficult or challenging about your job? So I just wanted to read a few of those to you tonight. I'm going to have to get a little bit closer. So it's hard to pick one thing I love most about my job. I think my favorite thing is how silly and fun every single day can be. I also love encouraging and listening to the kids. It feels special, specifically when the kiddos finally feel comfortable to talk to me about all their problems. I just try to listen, respond, and react, making them feel loved and nurtured. I love seeing the infants and toddlers developing, whether walking or learning new songs. What I love most about my job is being a part of a child's first ever school experience and hopefully being a part of a lifelong love to learn and discover. One of our preschool teachers has been getting a lot of feedback from parents and from staff actually up at Pacific Ridge about kindergarten readiness and how ready our kids have been when they've walked through those doors. And so in response to that, she said, "This is why I love my job as a preschool teacher. I feel like I'm really making a difference in children's lives and setting them up for success. Hearing these things also helps me on days when I might be experiencing challenging behavior from students, and it reminds me of why I do the work and why I do this work and why I love it." Just the last couple, I feel that taking care of youth is a privilege. They're young, innocent, and the wave of the future. I love to help them understand the world around them. Something I love about my job is being able to help the kids achieve the things they want to and see how happy they get when they do. The most challenging part of what I do is trying to assist with behavior challenges that have become more intense and challenging with the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is a very real thing. And lastly, every day is a mystery. I interact with 30 to 40 kids on a personal level every day, and they all come from different situations. Each day is a wild card. So, not only do we have pretty incredibly passionate staff, but they've got some pretty difficult jobs. So I wanted to just share too some highlights from the year. Probably our biggest accomplishment is that just a little over a year ago, on October 17th, we opened up our infant and toddler care program. So we are currently serving 9 children, offering full-time quality care. We have 7 staff to support both of those rooms. And we do have the thoughts of expanding on the forefront. So we're not quite there yet. We want to make sure that we really have a stable program, and both with staffing and just being fiscally responsible, but we definitely see it in the very near future. So I want to share a video that we put together.
The county in general is
That's okay.
child care district, and with infant and toddler care, that is right now the age group that is really the big need.
Working for the hospital, I know of many coworkers that have had to go down to part-time or even quit their positions because they didn't have child care, specifically caring for younger children like the infant age. So they've all had to quit working or go down to part-time. which in turn creates staffing shortages. There's a need for childcare in our community. There's not enough spaces, but there's a growing population of kiddos. I think by growing our program, we can bring in more kiddos who need a safe place to go throughout the day, as well as enrich our program for our kiddos that are already here.
I would just say that having that consistency has not only helped me have a regular work schedule, but I can plan my day and my meetings and actually get all my hours in and a consistent paycheck, which is always nice. Made a big difference on the sanity level for our family, because I don't have to work late at night to try to get my work done, as well as some quality time with her during the day, and then be ready to take care of my son when he gets home from preschool and all the regular family activities. Just, we were spread so thin before the program started, and it was kind of impossible. It was unsustainable and very, very difficult on everybody. And it's just been this huge breath of fresh air to have this program.
I think it would help a lot of parents who are looking for childcare, because I know there are a lot of parents that, like, I knew from my old daycare that are still looking, with every other daycare having, like, a long wait list. They're not really able to really have that opportunity to, like, mingle with other kids and stuff like that. So I think it would really help with that.
We love Sunset Empire. We have been coming here since my daughter had to attend the emergency school during the initial COVID shutdown. So we really appreciate everything that the services that you guys provide. And if without the infant program, things would look very different for my family.
As parents and as a professional that also manages this program, we really strive to find the best possible caregivers, and I see that in the care that's given to my daughter and to my son every day. Above all, they know that they're safe, they know that they're loved, and they're thriving in that type of environment. So I'm just so thankful that we have such wonderful people to take care of them, to help them grow, to help them develop and learn. And it's one thing to have a program, it's another thing to have the right people to support it and to have that strong foundation.
Nice piece of work, Erin.
Wish I could see all the credit for so we'll just move on just for sake of time. I just wanted to share some numbers with you in regards to our preschool attendance last year and this year. We are down a couple kiddos, and I think partly right now what we have available is just that part-time care because we are full-time. So I think that is a big need still in the community. Parents, we have a lot of working parents. Our after-school attendance has gone up. Last year, our capacity was at 35, and we increased that number by 5 this year. And part of that was, as we have kiddos from our pre-K moving up to kindergarten, we want to be able to support them to be able to go to the after-school program. So it's just a very cyclical process of, wanting to support and serve our families, and we felt like we were able to do that by adding a few extra spots this year. So.
Can I just ask you a question, Erin, on that last slide? So when it says 21 participants, so are those the same kids all year long? Do we have like 21 kids all year long, or are there different segments of time where they?
It's the same kiddos all year long.
All year long.
Yeah, our kiddos essentially, unless they have a big life change and on occasion we have families that move out of town or, but typically, these participants are here for the full year and then usually will join us for the summer as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to share a few of our fun things from the school year. We took some great field trips to the pumpkin patch, the Lighthizer farm. We were able to continue doing yoga once a week, taking our preschoolers swimming. We also added a new event that we were kind of excited about. Typically, we will do kind of a Mother's Day and a Father's Day event, 2 separate events, and we decided to create one this year. And it's a little bit more inclusive, and it was lunch with the loved ones, so it included grandmas, grandpas, aunts and uncles, anybody that was considered a loved one of our preschoolers came and had lunch with them. Just so happened that we also had a middle school band that was here, kind of on their little tour, and so they got to play for the kiddos and their families, and it really was just a really special event that came together. And then lastly, our preschool graduation. This was our second year of graduation, and this has been just a really unique and special event. It's highly attended, but it's just, I don't know, I get goosebumps thinking about sending our kiddos off to kindergarten, but then also celebrating our preschoolers moving up to their next classroom. It's a great way to highlight the year and just, celebrate with them. So. Summer camp this year was a blast. We did a little bit, a little different in terms of the themes that we had. So a little bit more organic. The last couple of years we've had a lot of the same themes, so we tried to change it up a little bit. We didn't have the grant funds this year that we did in the year previous, where we were able to do quite a bit of field trips. So instead of going out in the community, we brought the community to the kiddos. We had a lot of special visitors that came in. We had a magician, we had someone from the Sheriff's Department and Search and Rescue. We had the Scandinavian Court come and do a presentation. We had a beekeeper come in and talk a little bit about what he does. We also, probably my favorite activity from the summer is we created, Zoe helped us out with this, we created kind of a scavenger hunt for the farmer's market, so the kiddos got to go around to each of the vendors and learn a little bit about what they do, and yeah, it was a great summer. So, and then I've got one, just, I want to click on the next video. This is, of course he's not here, but this is just the end, our last week of summer camp, some of the fun that we got to do. So I thought you might appreciate our financing that we're getting done. So, yeah, in slow motion too. So. You can click to the next one.
Oh, no, this is worth it.
Yeah.
Go for the second, but she missed it, so that's about it. So, he was a trooper, it was great.
Sorry, Erin, can you just highlight these or talk about the numbers?
Yeah.
I think these are really noteworthy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so for preschool, the way that we run our preschool program and our summer camp program for preschool is we do offer a full-time option or a part-time option. So part-time option is just that it's a half day versus a couple of days a week. So our average for preschool full-time is we had 64 campers a week. Preschool part-time at 24 campers a week. Our school age, which is typically kind of our highest attended during the summer, was 140 campers a week averaging, and then a total over the 9 weeks was 2,043 campers. So we served a lot of kiddos this summer. So the next slide is about growing pains, and I feel like this quote is really applicable. So, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And I think it's really important that as we start looking at growing our programs, we have to make some tough decisions. We have to, we have to prioritize what's most important, and things change, and change is hard. And I would say probably the biggest, growing pains that we've had is just is with staffing. Finding the right staff, looking at our current staff, are they in the right place? And I think about one in particular in my brain that has worked for the district for quite a few years doing one thing, but man, we have now moved her to a different area and she's just really blossomed. But it's that initial change, it's hard. But just finding the right fit for staff, making sure that we're meeting the needs of our program. Also, just building use and prioritizing space in the building. We have a great building, we have lots of room. But we've had to make some changes as far as usage. One example this fall is our preschoolers. We have 2 preschool classrooms and had a separate napping room. And this year, that napping room went to our toddlers because we just felt like there was a need for them to be able to move to that extra space. So it required our preschool staff to adjust a little bit. And even though it was tough, they've come to grow with that change, and we're better for it. So And then just developing program expectations from the ground up, and that's more specific to the infant and toddler program, but lots of change, lots of growing, lots of kind of making those decisions.
I want to say something that just absolutely stunned me Sunday. I had a woman make a comment at my church. I didn't know we had a child care desert in this area, and I was absolutely aghast at, it's like, where have you been? And I just think it's so interesting that maybe there's people out there that still don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's an outreach resource that we aren't tapping into. I mean, I was just stunned that she didn't know. And I said, no, we've got some wonderful programs going on, but this is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. So I don't know if there's more that people can learn.
Well, and I think, Riley, we just had an article that came, and there's a second one actually from a separate organization, but there's definitely people have reached out to talk to us about our programming, but to really try to kind of emphasize and that need to the public. And yeah, it is a little surprising when kind of people aren't aware of it.
Aaron, how much of an unmet need is there in the community?
Without looking at numbers off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you, but you think about the fact that I can only think of maybe 2 to 3 maybe facilities in Clatsop County that provide care for infants and toddlers specifically. I mean, to me, that says a lot right there. So I can think of a lot that have closed down over the last couple of years. So you know that the need is not being met. So.
Do we still have waiting lists? How deep?
It's hard because a lot of the kiddos have been on there for a long time, so they're kind of aging out. Some of them are moving on to preschool, but I would say for infant and toddler, we could, probably 10 to 20 at least. But I think there's also people that just aren't on that list because they're not sure, or they know that we're already full. I think that's kind of the word on the street as well. So.
If you could wave a magic wand and say money and staffing weren't the issue, you had those, what you needed,
Mm-hmm.
how much would you increase capacity?
I think as long as we have the proper supports in place and the space, we've talked about just where we're at now of kind of doubling our enrollment. I think we could really triple our enrollment and have no problem doing so.
And is that also true of the summer camps, or is that mostly for the regular?
Yeah, summer camps are typically fill up pretty quickly, but I don't think that there's as much need for that. Summer camp is a little unique in that families are traveling and they're doing a lot of different things, so it's not, I have to have this versus the infant and toddler care where there's just not much of it.
What's your upper limit on your staff ratio to infants and toddlers?
So our ratios, it varies by age, but for infants it's a 1-to-4 ratio, and for toddlers it's a 1-to-5. So we typically staff a little bit up with our classrooms, specifically in those rooms, just because I don't know if you can imagine having to manage 4 babies, crying babies, all at the same time. So we try to be realistic and make sure that our staff feels supported, but those are the state ratios. Let's keep moving on really quickly. I just wanted to share a little bit of some of the partnerships that we've had, some from the past year and then some that we are just starting now this year. We've been enjoying going over to the public library once a week. Our preschoolers are enjoying story time. But Marianne is also coming over here and doing a special infant and toddler story time for our kiddos, which is really great. We've been working closely with Pacific Ridge, a lot based on kindergarten readiness, making sure our staff kind of know what to be doing with our kiddos and preparing them, but also, like this, for example, this last spring, we got to take our kiddos up for a special tour of the school, show them kind of what they would be expecting when they were to go there in the fall. They had a special time with Ms. Wozniak. So I feel like we've got a good connection with them. Child Care Resource and Referral has been instrumental in helping provide additional training for our staff. And one thing I'll talk about in a minute, but our goal is to become a licensed program. And a huge part of that is making sure that our staff have the professional development and all of the credits necessary for their positions. And so they have been helping us with that, create professional development plans with our staff. I'll just touch on, we just recently started having folks from the Nike Outlet come out and play with our kiddos every other week, which has been a blast. So excited to kind of see that grow. And Seaside School District, we partnered with them this summer. They provided the summer lunch program out of our building and for our film camp kiddos. So. Where are we headed? So I feel like we're just continually growing and growing. We have a lot of things I think that we want to accomplish, but I also want to make sure that we do that with mindfulness and aren't growing too fast. Like I mentioned before, we do want to expand our infant and toddler care. It's hard not to feel that pressure from the community and people, just like we talked about, people that are needing that care, but we also need to make sure that we're ready for that. One thing that's kind of unique now that we have our infant toddler program, preschool, and then after school is that we can really work to streamline our program goals. So our toddler teachers can work with our preschool teachers to make sure that they're preparing the little ones for that next step, and so forth, and all the way up. So just something that we're working on with our staff. We'd like to continue or to bring back some old programming, some kids night out programs that I think was more of a pre-COVID thing, but just something else to offer our kids. We are in the process of working towards licensing, and while I feel like programmatically, the way that we manage our programs and run our programs, we are right in line with licensing goals. I think a huge part of it is going to be that professional development for our staff. So continued training and professional development for our staff is definitely always going to be a goal for us. And I think right now, just we're continuing in the right direction. I'm really happy with how programs are going for the fall. After school program, preschool, and infant toddler are running really well. And yeah, just continuing to head in the right direction. So.
Just one more ever so brief question. So do the staff need to be professionally credentialed? So
there's different criteria. So when you become licensed, the state has actual positions. So they have like a lead teacher or an assistant, and there's different qualifications that are required for each of those titles or positions. And so while we may not necessarily have those actual positions currently, we have to kind of reframe things a little bit and just make sure that, our teachers that are working in the capacity as a lead now are going to have to make sure that they have met those qualifications and that criteria, and very much of that falls under additional training and credit.
So this may sound like a dumb question, but I do, like, what is the advantage to being a licensed facility? If we're already full and there's enough demand, and I mean, I assume that there's some advantage to the professional development of our staff, right? They get something out of that. But why do we need that?
Yeah, well, I can think of two things. One is just in general, I think that it's nice to have that oversight of the state and making sure that that they're a supportive organization. I think, I don't know, in previous years I've always felt like licensing was a big scary thing, but it's really not. In working with them, they're there to support you. They're there just to make sure that and to help you. But secondly, I think a big piece of the licensing aspect is funding. So a lot of grants require a licensed program, and so if we're obviously looking at growing and making our programs better meet the community needs, then having a licensed program is going to open up a lot more funding possibilities for us.
You've probably seen in the paper the Clatsop County Child Care Task Force. They've had 2 rounds of funding. And we obtained funding on the first round, which was last year, and that's kind of what really helped us get the infant toddler classroom. But we just found out last week that we did not receive funding in the second round, and a big part of that is because we're not a licensed facility according, some of their criteria was that it'd be the funding go to licensed facilities, and it's kind of chicken and egg because we can't get licensed yet because of the SRC. We're still waiting for the occupancy to be cleared before the Office of Licensing will let us become licensed. And there's probably some other hurdles for us to jump over, but I think that's the biggest one that there's no great sense in moving forward with the staffing stuff and all the other things that we need to do until we get that occupancy. We have been licensed in the past, and to Aaron's point, it is really nice to be able to share with, I think, parents, guardians that were licensed. And at the time, we were one, I think, only 2 or 3 licensed in the whole county, and the only one in South County. So that's kind of a gold star we can put on ourselves. There's probably more. I think there's more now. But anyways, sorry.
And the nice thing is, even with us waiting on that occupancy, we can work on some of that stuff behind the scenes. And so that's why we've been working with child care research and referrals and coming in a couple times just to meet with staff and kind of make sure to create those times for them so that when we get to that point, we'll hopefully be almost ready to go. So.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really nice work.
Very good.
Have a great evening.
So, Skylar, is that one slide with all of the quotes on it?
Uh-huh.
That would be awesome to have on our webpage somewhere.
Sure.
Same with the video.
The video has been on our social media. We actually showed that video at our Ship and Savor event. It was kind of one of the little pitches we made to the attendees to get them to, bless us with their contributions. Yeah, but I will work on that.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a good point, is like, each of these presentations is just so amazing, and it makes me feel a little bit bad that we're the only audience for these great presentations, right? And it's like, how do we distribute it a little bit more? It's like, I feel like all of these presentations could be a page on the website explaining under a what we do kind of section.
An hour and a half, 2 presentations.
Yeah. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, we
I
could
just
have a
hope
what
that
we do page.
what we do section and just break this down, because the presentations are great and they're putting a lot of prep into these, but then you see some of these numbers, like the number, it really is astonishing.
2,043 people in summer camp.
Yeah.
Do we know how many people are live streaming this?
Yeah, we do. We can. I don't know about the live streaming, but like when I go to produce the meeting minutes, YouTube will share how many views we have, and it's usually somewhere around like 20 to 30. I think is probably
8 right now.
8 right now. We're watching somebody. There are people out there. Hi, I'm on.
Yeah, we'd love just to have that. I think it's a great idea, Kyle. So,
Well, I mean, some of those quotes are tears.
yeah.
Emotional quotes.
It's so neat to be able to advertise the positive.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, moving us on, we have old business, so occupancy update.
Yeah, so with these next few items, these are going to be probably shorter updates than we've had in the past. There's some updates and things, but this is one of those months where things are getting done, but nothing like, we haven't hit any milestones. So with the fire suppression system, we're continuing to move forward. We have a fully executed contract with Convergent. They are working on the schedule and trying to figure out kind of their piece of it. I think I shared last time that we had a scheduled walkthrough, and that walkthrough occurred and was really successful, I think. And It's always fun to walk through the building with engineers and people with a different set of experiences than I have, because they really look at the building as being a fun puzzle. And I think I heard one of their team members say a couple of times, well, this will be really fun, this will be really new, like things like that. So I think it's an unusual project for them and one that they're, again, looking forward to. In terms of the conditional use permit application, again, no milestone hit. The application's been received by the city. There's been some correspondence back and forth between Brandon Dole and the city. I think we're waiting to find out if we are going to get on the docket or the agenda for the Planning Commission meeting in December or maybe January. I think we're hopeful for December, but those are usually on the first Tuesday of the month, each month, and that'll be an important milestone for us to go and present and take questions from the Planning Commission, and hopefully they will make a decision on our application. Yeah.
Do you want board support?
I think that would be wonderful, and not, honestly, I mean, I think it would be a good time for us to rally additional support. They will open it up to public comment, and there will be opportunities for people that maybe oppose the project in some way, maybe because of traffic impacts or other, they may see some other use of the SRC. I think having folks that feel strongly about the work that we're trying to do there and the hopes that we have for the building would be really positive, including the board.
And when would that be?
So like I said, we don't know yet. The Planning Commission meets the first Tuesday of every month. So if we get on the December, it'll be, I think, the 5th. In January, I want to say the 2nd, and I don't know if they'll meet that day or if they'll move it to a different Tuesday, or maybe they may skip. But
you'll let us know?
I will.
Okay,
As soon as I hear, I will share that, because I think that's, like I said, that's a milestone that we've been looking forward to. Moving on to item B. So lots has happened, but again, no milestone. We, after review of the IGA and our discussion, we did decide to not terminate the existing IGA as we talked about, and that was with some input from Celeste, the board member that was designated, and I think it was a good decision. The reason being is there had been some, I think, uncertainty about a few tenets of the document and some questions that both parties still had and needed some answers to. I think we've, as far as I'm concerned, we have finished our part of the process, and we have put the ball back in the school district's court. They're going to review the changes that we made, which include some slight modifications to the number of expected hours that we anticipate for the operational part of the field. Darren's team does great work in scheduling the field, programming the lights, making sure that the schedule is well communicated on our platforms, on our website even, and that takes some time. So we adjusted the expected time that it would take for that, and again, put the ball back in their court to hopefully review. I know they have a committee that's going to review the document, and hoping that we'll have a signed document soon, as I'm sure all of you are. Other updates regarding that, though, we were able, even though we haven't signed the new agreement, the new agreement calls for a IGA management committee to be formed, and so we actually formed that, I think, in August or September, and we met for the first time yesterday. It seemed like a long time ago, but Celeste, myself, Levi, the director of facilities and maintenance, and then the school district had the superintendent, the principal, and a school board member that they've selected to serve on that committee. And that was probably, I don't want to overstate it, but it was the most effective meeting that we've had on this topic in quite some time. I think we were able to get a number of our questions answered, get some information about scheduling, maintenance of certain things on the field, shared purchases that we have made or will be making soon. It was really positive. Got some details about their construction timeline and the plans for softball in 2024, how that will work, and so that was really helpful. I don't know if you want to add anything, but I'm looking forward to those meetings continuing and that relationship kind of being strengthened, the communication being strengthened. It's part of it.
So did any of that involve being at the school board meetings?
I don't think so. So this was kind of drawn out in the IGA. I do think, I think it was good that we did that and that we raised awareness on this issue. And I think it's heightened the need for greater communication from both parties. And certainly we have a responsibility to have good communication and be really open and sharing, and I hope that they feel that too. But we can control what we can control, which is being good communicators, being good partners, and working to do the best that we can for the district and positive outcomes for us. I think that's about it, unless you have anything on that.
The only thing I would say is, I think one of our lessons learned is that the IGA, when I look back at that previous IGA, I think where everybody wanted the IGA to work like that. The IGA was created in the spirit of collaboration, but I think not having more structure to regular meetings and bringing more people to the table meant stuff just sort of went unaddressed and so I think the idea of having these meetings and more people in these meetings, and we had a running agenda, so we have agenda categories that we hit every single time, and I think it seems pretty hopeful that will help keep the IGA intact and relevant. I mean, right, I think that's the idea, is we want an IG that's a living, breathing partnership.
Yeah. So is this, right now it's encouraging that?
I think so. I mean, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that we're done with the IGA or it's going to be adopted without any other revisions. But I think it was encouraging. It's good to have a productive meeting, and it's good to have that meeting and feel like it was an effective use of everybody's time. And I think both parties came away feeling like they got some answers. The only other thing I would add is that we were, after request, they did offer us an opportunity to kind of participate, or at least be an observer on their selection process there, in the process of obtaining a CMGC, a construction management general contractor, to help manage the project or oversee the project, which would include moving the facility and constructing the field. So they had their RFP out for that service, and that ended a week or so ago, and then I got to sit in on the evaluation of the CMGC proposals that they received, and that was good too. So probably can't say more about that right now because it's sort of in the works, but I was glad to be included, and I think it's good for us to strengthen that part of the relationship too, because we're going to need a strong relationship with this CMGC, because they're, on a part of our property and accessing the property through, the access road or on the backside of the SRC, and, there's some significant implications for our programs and services.
CMG, the consultant or a contractor?
Sorry, CMGC is it's a general contractor. Yeah.
It's not the name of the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started to sound like
Sorry.
Timmer.
Yeah, it's kind of a confusing acronym, but I think it's this popular way to go for large construction projects like this, and then they'll probably sub out the project to different contractors to work under their supervision.
There's a different engineer now and architect involved with it.
It's same. I think the project, they're still using the plans that were engineered by DCS. I think that's still intact. But yeah, there'll be some different folks involved now, I think.
Thank you.
As far as item C, don't really have a significant update. We did decide to not have facility tours. I think they were scheduled for last Friday, but just given some confusion and challenges with getting them scheduled, we're delaying them for a few weeks. There's going to be a poll that's sent out, and after those facility tours, we'll have those workshops that Brandon shared a little bit more about. But yeah, the plan's kind of, I think that's the part of the plan that we're at right now, and it's not going to go forward until those two pieces can get scheduled. That's all for, I think, those three items, unless any of the board has questions for any those topics.
All right, review business.
All right. Well, we don't have any new business, and as far as the executive director report, I'll be brief, but you've heard a lot. We've talked a little bit about shutdown. I just wanted to share a couple of things in addition to what I shared last month. So biggest projects, I think, are the replacement or installation of the 2 HVAC units in the locker rooms. And I think that'll be a welcome addition. And we were talking today at staff meeting, like, well, there's going to be air conditioning in the locker rooms, and someone was saying, that's not, we don't need air conditioning here, but it really will improve the air quality and the ventilation in those spaces. Levi shared that another project that they've identified and are going to take on is redoing the grout and the tile in the women's locker room. It's a fairly big space, so I think that'll be really welcome. And then the diving blocks installation, we haven't received them yet, so we're hoping they'll arrive in time and everything. But even if they don't, we'll do all of the prep work that we can, and so that they can just be fixed on when they get here. We'll be closed until, I want to say the date is November 13th, which is a Monday, and that's the first day of high school swim team and a new swim lesson schedule starting that day. So it'll be a busy day. So we definitely need to be able to hit the ground running, the pool, swimming. I don't know, whatever. Yeah.
Back in the swim.
Yeah, back in the swimming things. Yes. As far as the goals go, I provided a little bit of an update. I was really happy to have the opportunity to have Doug come. That's something that I know it's been on our minds for a long time to have a conversation about SDCs, and I think maybe the next steps forward would be I can share his slides with you all, but I'd really like to encourage you to consider not letting that sit for too long if we're going to move forward, making a decision fairly quickly, because I think there's an impetus from us, but I also think there's, Doug didn't mention this and I didn't necessarily want to bring it up, but there's a statewide movement to limit SDCs by some legislators that view it as negatively impacting the construction of affordable housing, and I think there's some merit to that, but in my conversations with the ORPA Legislative Committee and other groups, this is one of the only ways that growth for a special district or for a local government can be captured, and kind of that growth can be what was I trying to say? That growth can be quantified. Yeah. You can capture the growth, and you can have a resource. You can have the appropriate resources for adding services.
For funding.
Yeah, because even though our tax rate or our amount of homes isn't necessarily growing exponentially, it is growing in the district, and with that growth, our tax rate doesn't grow. Right? It's permanent at the rate that it's at. So providing additional services, providing additional things, building out infrastructure, capital improvements, all that stuff is really, you kind of have to look around for funding mechanisms for it, and this is a really appropriate mechanism for it. Some of the other goals I wanted to just call out. Number 10, we are always working to do more to have a healthy workplace culture. This is, I think, a goal that I sort of had, but I didn't highlight this in the document, but I do want to honor, we had a couple of employees that hit some milestones with us. Darren, actually here, and Amanda hit 20 years of service to the district, and we recognized them at a staff training that we had on Saturday, and that was great. We also had staff participate in the full-time staff participated in a staff retreat a few weeks ago where we worked on trust and communication. Those are challenges as we've grown as an organization and added new people that we can always improve on. Don't think I have anything else on that. As far as some of the other recaps, we have had 2 really awesome special events. I love this time of year because we've gotten to post some really cool things in the SRC And I shared this morning to our staff. Isn't it awesome that we get to have these awesome, really cool events, bring people together, and we get to do it in a building that we own. That's different. We can host stuff here at the Bob, but we don't own this building, and the capacity is limited. You can only fit 100 or so people in the main hall. At Family Fun Fest on Saturday, we had 680 people come through in 2 hours. So it's a credit to Zoe, our special events and recreation manager, and the team that she put. Darren put a lot of work into it. We had, probably 35, 40 more volunteers that helped us with running the carnival games, helping with the food, helping with just different contests and things like that. It was really fun. And in terms of the Latinx Hispanic heritage, I really wish I wasn't able to be here because I was flying to Dallas for the NRPA conference at that same time. But in conversations with our staff, some attendees, and Jenny from Consejo Español, celebration went really well. It was well attended. Jenny said it was more successful and popular than last year, and I know last year we had about 450 to 500 that were here. Not sure if we captured total attendees, but I think it was a really awesome event. I did attend the NRPA conference in Dallas, and the highlight.
Can I ask a question? So those are excellent, amazing recaps, and do we do any kind of, just to make sure the rest of the community knows about that, do we do any kind of press release or anything to the Signal with some, you guys always have just such great photography at these events and stuff, so are we doing any kind of release or recap?
We should re-engage that. I think some of that has probably fallen off a little bit with Melissa, her skill set in writing not being with us, but maybe at least for the Fun Fest, Darren, do you think we could do something and use some of the photos that Ross took?
Yeah, Ross. Yeah, I haven't gotten any of the photos back from Ross yet, but when we do, we'll definitely do a follow-up piece. Pretty sure Consejo Hispano has done sort of a kind of follow-up piece from their side. They had all the numbers. I think they actually stopped counting after 450. Something happened. They kind of started losing track of total numbers. But
and I think we could come up with a template for an easy press release. It does, the verbiage doesn't even need to be that long. I want to see Sunset Park, and I want to see our name listed in there as getting credited. I want to see the name of the event. See how many people, how many citizens participated. It just doesn't need to be that, and maybe what the purpose was, why we did it, right? Why it was held, but then some photography, and that's really all you need. But I think it would be a good way to get, and even to Kyle's earlier comment about and also then to put that stuff up on the website, so it's about what we do, right, is these events. So I think we can make it an easy lift.
So the weekly columns that you mentioned here, is that an opportunity for that kind of?
Yeah. I have hesitated in doing recaps because sometimes my submissions, I might submit on Monday thinking that it will run in the Signal on Saturday, and sometimes it's not. It'll be one or even more than 1 week delayed. And so I try to put stuff in there that's not as time sensitive or recap, you know what I mean? But I did have a column on Saturday that talked about the strategic plan, kind of coinciding with the City of Seaside is doing a comprehensive plan review right now, and they're seeking public input for that. So I just thought it was a great time for citizens to offer feedback on a host of things, but especially parks and park development and access to parks and open space. So back to number 3, I did attend the NRPA conference in Dallas. The main reason that I attended was because 2 years ago, the district received a $90,000 grant through NRPA. It was from the Walton Fund, I think.
Walmart.
Walton Family Fund.
I thought it was Walmart.
Yeah, that's the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Through Walmart, and it was designed for us to improve community health initiatives, especially through food. And so we've been doing a few different things, and we still have a good chunk of the funding to spend. We've made some improvements in the SRC kitchen to be able to host cooking classes. We've used some of the funds for marketing for the senior meal site. We talked about that a little bit, and also improved some of our nutrition programs for kids. But that was really great. I got to be in a one-day kind of grant seminar with all the other cohorts from around the country, and it's really a positive experience. And then to attend the conference in Dallas was great too. Another educational opportunity coming up in November is the ORPA conference. You know, Kyle's on for attending. Appreciate that. And some other stuff coming up in November, which is here next week, believe it or not. Thanksgiving is a big day for us at the district. We will be hosting the turkey trot again. Last year was our biggest turkey trot ever. We had over 300 runners and walkers. We had a new route that was really fun. People get to run down the center of Broadway with the street closed, and that's a pretty special experience.
You're not closed?
No.
Street closed.
Street closed.
Street closed.
I was there.
Mike's signing up.
Just that.
Even deaf people have our own humor.
And
Sometimes I'm glad I have a bad foot.
later that day, still with clothes on, we'll be hosting the community Thanksgiving meal from noon to 2 here, and that's been a really great partnership. I did want to highlight our November meeting date is a little unusual. It's still the fourth Tuesday, but it's after Thanksgiving, so just keep that in mind. I think typically our meetings always fall on that Tuesday before Thanksgiving, so it's going to be kind of weird for me at least to not be there. And then just a reminder that our December meeting, we made the decision to cancel it. So unless we have something come up, and we'll schedule probably a different date for that December meeting. Call out the two flyers that you have in your packet. You have turkey trot flyers in English and Spanish.
I love seeing that.
Yes.
And both of these are the graphic design work of Ross, who has our most of our marketing efforts, an external graphic design marketing consultant. And I think he's doing some really good stuff, kind of keeping our stuff fresh and different.
So are these on the website too?
They are. I don't know if the Thanksgiving flyer is, but it's definitely on our social media. Both are, and yeah, we'll be pushing more over the next couple weeks. I think we're trying to get through Halloween events. Mike, sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to comment on the ORPA, because the last meeting I indicated an interest in going to that, and then we got an update from you, and they suggested it would be kind of expensive because of the hotels and stuff. And so I'll just back out of that and leave an opportunity for staff or somebody.
Okay.
But, you know, my tenure is winding down. You know, I probably won't run for re-election, so it's time for some other people to go to these conferences.
Well,
recommend it.
2024 is an even year, so none of you are going to be on the slate for election year. We run in odd years, so 2025 will be the next
whatever.
Available.
Got a couple more years, right?
So yeah, we have
couple more years.
We have at least one
20 months.
representative going. and
I've
we
been
have
to a lot of these
couple
conferences.
staff.
I love doing them.
And
But I will back
Thanks for
out.
making my registration.
Also wait for
it wasn't expensive, Mike. It was that there was an early registration deadline, and we were going to pay more if you went after that date. So it's okay, and we have another great opportunity for education in February with the SDAO conference in Seaside. So
Yeah.
you won't need a hotel
We'll
room.
catch up on our training then.
That's it for me. Thanks, Celeste,
Thank
for
you.
running the meeting.
Sure. All right, on to board comments.
Just a couple things. First, a big thank you to, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but Consuelo Hispano, is that how you pronounce it?
Consejo.
Consejo
Yeah.
Hispano. You know, it was an awesome event. My wife and I went, and the thing that struck me is they provided everything themselves. There was no way to pay for a meal. There was no way to leave a tip. There was no way to offset some of their costs of putting this whole thing together. That was my only objection, is I wanted to support this so they could do more. But it was really a remarkable event. Darren, thanks for you being there, appreciated that. Congrats to Izzy. Each month I discover how awesome the staff here is, and that's great. And Chris for uncovering the dollar misadventure, and of course Aaron. That was a really great presentation. I think in the context of the system development charges, I don't think we can do this ourselves. I think we're going to need some help, not to pursue it, but to explore it. And irrespective of whether we decide in the future to pursue system development charges, I think it would be really good to know exactly how much it costs us for every person who receives that part community. But I also think that, in the big picture context of perhaps expanding our geopolitical boundaries, then we need to have some of this stuff that we've done that we offer to all the community, not just to our residents, but to people from all over the county. They come to the Latinx, and I think the whole community needs to know about that stuff. So when we start looking at our boundaries, and we're looking at our boundaries where people have used our services and we know it's independent markets. So as long as we can keep all of the stars aligned with that, long-term goal, I think that's awesome.
Sue?
I can mirror what Kyle has so nicely said. I know I get to see Izzy at work regularly, and I am just so impressed with her, not just for the work she does on deck, but the work she does in the water with the youngsters, and so I'm very grateful that she's being recognized for that skill. I'm grateful to Marty for her letter. I think that I'm sorry she didn't stay longer, because first of all, I'm not used to us being able to respond so quickly, rather having to wait until this time period. So I wish she had stayed a little bit longer, because I think she would have, she usually connects with me on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I wish she had stayed longer, but I am glad that we were able to address her concern, and I hope that she feels comfortable that we are going to take a look at it. I think it's a smart idea to tell people, please know that we have a 2-week shutdown when you sign up, because I do my yearly dues. I don't think anything of it, but I think that, like I said in the very beginning, every complaint is a gift, and we can find something positive out of that. I appreciate the programs that we put forward, and I think Aaron is a true treasure. I think the team that we have working in our community, for our community, is a gem, and I don't think that they receive the recognition for that as often as they should. I'm very grateful to Levi and Courtney for just keeping things going. And again, those skills are kind of unsung in some respects. Skylar, Darren, Chris, I'm very grateful for, and Justin and the team, just for the skill set that comes as we look forward to looking at the patrons and finding how we can benefit and make things better, and of course that we can help play. I wanted to just say that I'm very grateful for the speaker. I'm so sorry, I forgot his name. Roger? Doug? Anyway, I thought he was masterful in communicating to us a very tenuous, or that's not the word, a very difficult subject matter. and I thought it was quite helpful, and I'm very grateful, and I do agree, we should move forward with that. You know, the events that we put forth to the community, are always, there's always something, and I think that doing more advertisement for what we offer is not, any kind of lost opportunity to pat ourselves on the back, but also tell somebody, hey, come play with us. This is what we offer, you know, and we're listening and we're adapting and we're helping each other. So I think there's an awful lot of opportunity in this community to take advantage of what we are listening and what we offer as an opportunity. I think it's exciting. I don't expect to be here this November. I hope that somebody will go out and feed those people that are sitting outside of Safeway and whatever places, and Mill Pond. I went out there last year, and that we don't forget to feed the pets. And so I want to say thank you, and I appreciate the support this board gives me, because I'm right now not quite able to be as focused with some family crises that are going on. So I'm very grateful for the support of the board, and I'm grateful for the team that we have working to help our community. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Shutdown plans, and you got tile work. You know, I'm kind of an expert on tile. If you would like me to volunteer to address or restore anybody's tile in the park district there, the ladies' dressing room, you know, put me on that. I'd be available.
Okay.
To put in a day or two doing that.
I will share.
I really enjoyed the Latinx, you know, festival. I missed it last year. I saw, you know, you there. It was great to be there. I heard that it was scaled down from last year, but the place was packed. You know, I loved all the children and families that were there. It was great. The food they shared with us, it was just marvelous food. I'm not sure if it was catered at all, but I think they have a connection. Consejo Hispano has a connection with a restaurant, a Oaxacan restaurant in Astoria, Monte Alban. And but anyway, I thought that festival was great. The dancing was great. The fall festival was fun. I volunteered there, as you probably know, and it was just a mob. I mean, the gym was just amazing, the way it was lit up, and I just had a smile on my face. I was just amazed and grateful that we had this wonderful space to have these almost seemed like retro events. You know, it's like, yeah, this is like really, we couldn't have done anything like that at the convention center. You know, it would have been impossible. That was awfully fun to be at. Anyway, I do want to make a mention. I'm the new president of Seaside Kiwanis Club, and we've always tried to help fund special projects for the district, and I'm looking for new ways for Kiwanis to partner with the district to maybe target some needs that we can have special events for. So there might be a lot we can do. But this year, we will be able to bring back our holiday tree sales, which will be held at the Outlet Mall. Last year we had no trees, and it's one of our biggest fundraisers for our high school Key Club, high school Kiwanis members, if you will, for scholarships. So it's really great we can continue to do the tree sales for the community. So if you're into the tree market, please see us. We'll try to help you out. We will have some quality trees, limited number, but I want to thank you, Scholar, for your work, and I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Skylar, thanks for arranging for Doug Gabbard from the FCS group to come with the SBC charges. That was great information. It was a really nice, compact presentation. Greatly appreciated. And the only other thing I really wanted to follow up on is Erin's presentation. Just gives me a lot of hope. Like, we set out part of our vision when we talked about purchasing the SRC and investing in that was to be able to expand our childcare kind of offerings. And I think we have delivered on that promise, and I think there's still more to do also. Clearly from hearing from her and about the waiting list and the need in the community. And so I'm really excited to revisit that as we take a look at our strategic plan and to think about how that fits into the equation of things. I think it's just a really valuable service that we're offering, both to the regular childcare kind of programming that we do, but also the camps, like that's 2,000 kids that experienced Park and Rec. So I was just really taken with that, her presentation and all that she contributes to our programming. And with that, I think that's all we have, folks. Right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Silence?
Ma'am, let me, how's the recording first?